Welcome to the sixth and final in the runes, the major arcana, and the Bible series. And this is the Bible story that pertains to everything that we've discussed in the Tir'at. And I wasn't sure originally if I was going to go with a Bible story or if I was going to continue along that story, or if I was going to go with another one, quite frankly, when I was choosing them. And then I re-looked at them and I thought, there is one that's jumping out at me, and it does continue in this story in the beginning of the Bible. So we have someone who, makes a great sacrifice. There's travel involved, seeds are planted, and there's a shift in everything in the way of the world and how people are thinking, and then we have home. And so for me, this is Moses and the Exodus. So we start with Moses' mom. And Moses' mom, so back in the day, the Israelites were getting great in number, and the king of Egypt wasn't very happy about that, and he wanted to, he was worried because he treated them pretty badly, and he was worried that they would outnumber, and at some point he was going to have to really worry about a rising up. So he instructed the midwives that would go out and assist in these deliveries to, if it's a boy, if it's a firstborn boy, kill it. If it's a boy, kill it. We don't want the boys. We don't want the boys. Get rid of it. We don't want this population to keep growing. If it's a girl, let it go. Who cares about the girls? So, but if it's a boy. So the mother places Moses in the river, sets him in a basket, and he goes down the river, and Moses' sister looks to make sure to find out what's going on, who picks him up, and sure enough, the Pharaoh's daughter sees the basket. She sends her handmaiden to get it, and when they see that it's a little baby boy, their heart is filled with pity, and it's that maternal instinct that when you see a helpless little baby, you want to help it. And so this is the motherhood. This was the sacrifice. This was the motherhood. And thankfully, the daughter being there and seeing the Pharaoh's daughter taking it, approaches the Pharaoh's daughter and says, "Oh, you're going to need a nursemaid. I know a nursemaid." And she goes and gets her mother. And so now we have two mothers in the story of Moses, the biological one and the one who will be adopting him. Now, we assume that Moses lived a life of privilege, and he had two different belief systems going on. One that would be an influence from his maternal, biological mother, who had some influence, and one that was the system that he is being raised in, where he can see the slaves being treated so badly. So as he is aging and he sees, Egyptians treating the slaves so badly, he ends up killing an Egyptian. And the next day, a comment is made, and he realizes he's been discovered, and he flees. And here we have the movement card. This is the time where he takes action to flee to, I think it's Median, I don't know. He takes action to flee. When he flees, he meets his wife and starts a family. And, there, like, a whole series of events starts happening. Then God eventually says, okay, the Pharaoh is now long gone. He's dead, but my slaves are still suffering. And so he comes back to Moses and says that he needs to step up and be the leader to free the people. And so this is where we have more movement in that direction of going back, getting the slaves, bringing them out. So next we have manas, which is mankind and that personal reflection. Now God is asking Moses to do something he doesn't feel capable of doing. And he's like, well, why would they believe? How am I supposed to prove to them? He's asking a lot of questions. He's reflecting on the situation, and he's saying, I don't know if I can do this. So, and God is answering each of these things, but this is like a time of reflection. He's seeing, what needs to happen. He's knowing that he's being asked these things, and he's taking time to consider whether or not he can. I would also say, in the personal reflection, so not only is this a time where he's going to have to reflect on things, but everyone is going to have to reflect on things. So once he makes his decision to go ahead and try and have his people freed, that's when he needs to show proof of God. And God does the plagues and Passover until finally we have a shift from laguz, which would be flow, but it's upside down, which would be stagnation. So now we have movement. So we have been in this holding pattern all this time with laguz, in this same old, day in, day out, nothing's going anywhere. And no matter how many times God comes back and says, here's more proof, here's more proof, here's more proof, the stubbornness of the Pharaoh. And now the Pharaoh, now that it's really affecting his own, people, and, and it's getting too great to bear, he says, get out of here. I don't even want you here anymore. You'll be doing me a favor. Just get your people and leave. I don't care. Take whatever you want. Go. I'm done with you. And so Moses, very quickly, before he has the chance to change his mind, gathers up the people and says, let's get out of Dodge. So that's that. Now we have, one other thing about this. Eventually, guess what? The Pharaoh does change his mind. And the Pharaoh says, you know what? I want my people back. He doesn't have any of his slaves. They're all gone. And so he sends out his troops to go and get them. And in this part of the story, we actually do have the Red Sea, which I thought also pertained to the flow, because here you have a bunch of people that really, honestly, they really just sound like whiners if you read the Bible. They just sound like a lot of whiners. They're tired, they're hungry, they're thirsty. Time after time, God keeps showing them, hey, hey, hey. But no matter what, they keep plugging along, but they keep going, so you brought me out to the desert to die? You brought me out the desert to starve? You brought me out the desert, I'd rather go back and be a slave. They keep second guessing. And so here, when you have Laguz, you have them reach the Red Sea, and they're going to have to cross it. And it's like, oh, we can't cross the Red Sea. We're supposed to walk in and just drown ourselves to death. We're never, so this is how we're going to die instead. And Moses is instructed to have the people step in, and they walk into the Red Sea, and the sea parts, and as the people are coming from behind, they go to follow, and where they are, the sea closes in on them. So, but the slaves and all of the different people of different ancestry, they have the clear path, and they are still in momentum, and they're still in flow, and there's nothing stopping them. So next we have Inguz, which is the seed. This is many, 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 many seeds. Here we have the 10 Commandments, all of the different laws, the formation of, the dwelling. Everything that is supposed to be happening is being established in the Bible at this point. So now we're saying, this is how we live. This is what it's going to look like. This is what you need to do. And so there are many seeds planted to be the foundation of the synagogue and how they live, and how they will follow God, and how they will show, how they'll glorify Him and all of that. So the next one we have is Lagaz. Lagaz in this one, I really wasn't totally sure how I wanted to do these next two. Lagaz is that aha moment, and I feel like, there were a lot of aha moments, and, being human, 5 minutes later, it's forgotten. So I feel like this had a lot more to do with the day-to-day mundane tasks that they had to do, the repetition, the eternal, the day, night, day, night, day, night. They make a lot of references to during the day, God would come down and He would be a cloud, and He would, like you would follow the cloud, or the cloud would encompass, and at night it would be a fire, and it would illuminate the path. And so when you needed light, you had light, and when you needed shielded, or, to be able to follow. So I see this as a lot of different things, but one of the things that I would say is, because they didn't do that aha and what they needed to do, like all of the seeds had been planted, and they had enough to keep them going, rocks that would spurt water when they were thirsty, and everything was provided for. And yet they kept doubting or disobeying, and so they ended up having to wander for 40 years in the desert. They could have gotten there a lot sooner to the promised land had they just obeyed, but they really didn't. And so they kept wandering. So it took them a long time before they reached the promised land. And so they circled around and all sorts of troubles that could have been avoided, but now we have them, in their new place and safe. So that is how I see this played out in Bible story. And I hope that helps give a little bit of light to each of the runes. Tiwaz, sacrifice for the greater good. Berkana, fertility, growth. Awo or Awaz, which is, the horse taking a step in the right direction. Manaz, reflection, the self, humanity, mankind. Lagus, the lake, flow, momentum. Ingus, the seed, growth, fertility, rebirth. Vagas, daybreak, breakthrough, turning points, daylight, dawn. And Othala, homeland, ancestry, kinsfolk. And that's the runes in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed this series, and if you didn't get a chance to look at the others, or if you want to revisit, you can always revisit the same story, like the same 8 ets, and go back into the one before to give a little more explanation. Also, just a reminder, there is a lot of times people will use a blank rune. I do too, and this does not belong to any of the 3 ets. And generally, when you pull it, you know how people ask the same question 20 times, and it's like, stop asking. That's what you get with this. So it's sort of like, okay, I'm not even going to answer that question. You already know the answer. Stop asking. I've already answered it. So that would be your 25th, but it really doesn't have, it's an addition to the Elder Futhark, not something that would have originally been there. So, okay, I hope you enjoyed it. Take care. Namaste.